driving home. Sir, do you know where the Helmer Community Center is? Helmer Community Center? Oh, it's okay. Thank you now. Sir, do you know where the Helmer Community Center is?
I'm kind of lost myself.
Okay, thank you. Thank you now. Folks, do y'all know where the Helmer Community Center is?
The Hellman?
Hellman Community?
On 12th Street?
Is it 12th Street? I thought they said it was 3rd Street.
If it's the Hellman Community Center, it's on 12th.
It's on 12th?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sir, do you know where Helmer Community Center is?
What's it called?
Hellman Community Center?
One sec.
Hellman Community Center.
Yeah, I've been looking at it.
It's Hellman, I think it is.
Greater Cincinnati.
Yeah, Community Center.
It's
Do y'all know where the Martin Luther Hellman Community Center is?
No, we're not from here.
Oh, not from here? Okay. Well, God bless you. Take care. Well, we'll find the Martin Luther, or find the Hellman Community Center. It's bound to be bound here somewhere. Well, let's go across the bridge and see if we can find anything over here. You fellas, do you know where the Helmer Community Center is? Hellman Community Center?
sorry, no speak English.
Oh.
No speak English.
Oh, okay. Thank you now. Do you speak English?
Oh, no Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Thank you now. there in front of me. But a snake had bit me. Open your eyes when you drive down the street. I knew it had to be somewhere tied to this Martin Luther King thing here. Oh, we'll just try it out here and see what we find out. Go around the block here. Down the corner. The old country boy said, around the corner. Got the yellow light here so we can go. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you. Well, that's a do not enter there, so we better not do that. Yeah, we might be able to do this. Get around there. At least we've seen it. So we know we got it somewhere up here. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Sir, do you know where the Hellman Center is? The Hellman Center?
Just take a right over here, and it'll be on the left.
Take a right on the left. Okay, thank you now. Hellman Creative Center. Oh, I think I found it here, folks. Hellman Creative Center. There we go, right there. Praise the Lord. Let's see if we can find a little place to park here.
That's what, so this is what it's up there most of the time, and so only when we're ready for the Zoom person.
We'll go to the
You
two.
got it, yep. And the other features will be using the same thing. Message. When we might, you know, might have some unusual technical pieces. Okay. We're good? We're good. Back there. All right. Give us a second. I'll give you 5 seconds countdown, and I won't say one. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening and welcome to the 6 at 6 lecture sponsored by Scripps Howard Center for Civic Engagement at NKU. I'm Shauna Riley. I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about our 6 at 6 lectures and then introduce our speaker. So the 6 at 6 lecture are 6 lectures or so throughout the course of the academic year that are in the community. So we bring faculty out to talk about what they're working on, to talk about what they're working on with the community, and well as showcase what we do here at NKU. So this lecture series is loosely connected to well-being. I say loosely because every once in a while we kind of go off track, but mostly related to well-being. And there's nothing, of course, more about well-being than the climate. So it is my pleasure this evening to introduce our speaker, Dr. Kristy Hopfensperger from Biological Sciences and the Director of the Environmental Science Program at NKU. And she's going to talk about her folks that are joining her. We have students as well as a person online joining us, a community partner online. And so she's going to take it away. Dr. Hopfensperger.
Thank you, Shauna. Hi everyone, I'm Kristy Hopfensperger. I'm a professor at Northern Kentucky University in environmental science. And we want to talk with you tonight about the work that we've been doing right here in Northern Kentucky. And I'm not doing anything alone. I have a whole team of people, and a few of them are here tonight. And they will be presenting throughout the evening as well. So we have Tiffany Harvey from Groundwork Ohio River Valley. She'll be joining us online tonight. And we have Connor Viox from a recent graduate of our environmental science program at NKU. She's also an intern with Groundwork Ohio River Valley. And we have Zoe Robles, and she is also an environmental science student about to graduate and interned with Groundwork Ohio River Valley. So my job here is to introduce kind of the big picture, talk a little bit about climate in our region, and set the stage for the other three speakers to really get into the details of the project that we've done. So Climate Safe Neighborhoods program is a national program through Groundwork USA, which is a national organization. And we are so lucky in our region to have a regional chapter called Groundwork Ohio River Valley, doing a lot of amazing work. So if you take one message home tonight, be sure to look them up and see all the work they've been doing in Northern Kentucky and the Cincinnati region. The Climate Safe Neighborhood program has a main goal of empowering communities that are the most vulnerable to build resilience to extreme heat and flooding. There are some specific goals, including unpacking the history, the relationship among climate crisis, racism, and historic segregation, to prioritize changes to that tonight of what we're talking about, but really it's all about residents and communities working together to be able to safely take on the impacts that climate has headed our way. So, with our regional Climate Safe Neighborhood program, Groundwork Ohio River Valley got together with another big environmental organization in our region called Green Umbrella, another organization for all of you to look up. They're doing amazing work. And together, a few years ago, they started the Climate Safe Neighborhood program in 11 different neighborhoods in Cincinnati. They also created the Climate Safe Dashboard at that time. And we're going to be talking with you tonight a lot about the dashboard. We wanted to expand this project to Northern Kentucky. I have been a huge fan of the work they're doing in Cincinnati. It is so amazing. It's so cool how residents are involved in the whole process. And I wanted to get that on this side so that we could be doing this work over here with our residents in Northern Kentucky and our students. So we began this effort in the cities of Covington, Newport, and Dayton, Kentucky. And that's really what we're going to be talking with you all about tonight. So we wanted to get a little bit of feedback from our audience in person and online. And we're going to start out just with a show of hands. Those of you online can pop into the Zoom chat or share your answer. Just wondering who here is from Covington? Okay, we have maybe 3 or 4 people in the room. How about Newport? Newport, Kentucky? Okay, we have 2 more. Dayton? We got 2 more, and elsewhere. Woo! All right, we got a handful of people from other areas as well. Thank you for sharing that. So we have 2 really quick questions we're going to ask you. If you have a phone or a tablet, if you can get this little, I forgot what those are called, QR codes. If you don't have a ability to do that, you can type in menti, menti.com, and put in this code here. I'm going to bring this up on the screen. That same code will be there, and we'll be able to see your responses to these questions live. So, our first question is, do you think climate change is currently happening or where you live? We'll wait just a few seconds for people to respond. Online, if you can QR code that as well, you can jump in. And there's no right or wrong. Just getting an idea of where everyone's coming from. And then if you don't have to do anything, just like scroll arrow down to the next question. We have one last question. In just 1 or 2 words, how do you think climate change is impacting your neighborhood where you live? We'll wait just a few more seconds for people to share and join in. This is creating a word cloud. If you've used those before, the more times a word is used, the bigger font it gets. So the size of the term represents how many times someone shared that thought. So we have some great responses here. Heat, rainstorms, flooding, bugs, utility bills, less wildlife, all great. And you can kind of see which is coming out. Flooding and heat are 2 big things we're going to talk about today. There are a ton of impacts of climate change, but we're not going to get into all of them. And I'm really glad that we do have some direct impacts here to humans and how it affects us in our day-to-day lives as well. Thank you so much for participating in that. I'm just going to go back to full screen quick. All right, so who wants a long lecture on the science of climate change? You're not going to get that tonight. I just want to set the stage for really what's happening in our region. So we know the climate is changing. We know that scientists agree on that the atmosphere of our whole planet is on average getting warmer and warmer each year. But what's really happening right where we are in our region? These are 2 graphs provided by a super cool organization called Climate Central. And if you like staring at graphs and comparing different cities around the US, I can get stuck here all day long. It's a really fun website to play around on. They compile all this data, they put out really cool stories, and you can toggle and do like Cincinnati, Chicago, New York, and compare different regions. So it's really fun. I wanted to share with you tonight some like really current data that has to do with kind of what's going on right now. There's millions of graphs and data out there, but I wanted to pick kind of where we're at. So this is showing you on our x-axis of the orange graph, we have 1970 all the way to 2023. And it's how many days on our y-axis are getting warmer than on our historic average. And what this graph is showing you is that we have around 8 or 9 really hot, warmer days than we used to have decades ago in the fall in Cincinnati. And there's something else I really want to take the time to point out, something you can learn, a nugget you can bring back to your people in your world and share about climate. Whenever people are talking about climate change, I always think of people saying, oh, the climate's not changing, it's so cold I had a shovel today, right? But what this graph shows us is the variability from year to year in our weather and in our temperatures and precipitation. So this dark line that goes up and down year after year is showing you variability. We know there's hot years, there's cold years. We know that you can have a snowstorm where you actually have to get out a shovel instead of a leaf blower here, right? So we know there's variability, but when we're talking about climate and climate science, we're talking about long-term averages. And that's how we can detect changes in patterns and trends that are happening over time. And so our long-term average is this white line showing us that we do have this increase over time, even when we have hot and cold years, or drought or rainy years. So we do know temperature is important, and I know all of you know that because you added it to the word cloud. So precipitation is another variable we're going to talk about. That's rain, snow, everything all together. And what this graph is showing you is each season. So we have winter, spring, summer, fall, and then the whole year together average. And it's showing you how far, the percent above historic data. So there's a few things this graph pops out at me right away. First of all, all the bars are going up. None of them are going down, below 0. So that means all year long in our region, we're getting more precipitation, not less. Another thing that stands out probably to you too, winter is the biggest bar, right? So we are getting more precipitation in winter more than any other season than we've ever had in the past. And then on average, year after year, we are getting more precipitation in our region than we historically have received before. And if you're interested in more details, go to that Climate Central. It explains all the years that were used in that data, and you can find out a lot of really great information. So that's it. That's my climate science for the night. We have hotter temperatures and more precipitation. And what does that mean for our region? It means that we are dealing with more extreme heat, and that actually has the biggest impact on human health in the summer, because human physiology has a harder time dealing with those hot temperatures, and it really impacts people who are in buildings that don't have air conditioning, or in neighborhoods that don't have a lot of vegetation or a lot of trees are going to be a lot warmer because of that impervious surface like cement, parking lots, streets. All of those things are going to retain that heat, and the nights are going to be warmer as well. So we have variability even in our own region, among neighborhoods, among blocks even, of how these impacts could be received. Another impact you all thought about was flooding. We know that's a big issue in our region as well, with all our rivers, our waterways, and again, that can be really variable about how it impacts different neighborhoods, right? So if you're high on the hill, maybe flooding isn't your biggest concern, but for our friends in the lower elevations, that's something they are obviously really concerned with. And then, we're not going to get too into it tonight, but storms is another impact of climate change in our region. So we know, and there's data out there you can look at, that we are getting more frequent storms, so more tornadoes than historically in the past, or big storms like that. And we also know that the precipitation is coming in these more extreme events. So we're getting more of those hard downpours and less of what I like to call the lazy couch day rain, where you can just have this little pitter patter outside and, I don't know, watch Netflix all day. We don't have that as much. We have these big storms blasting through, and that's really impactful because when the rain comes down really fast and really hard, it doesn't have time to soak into the ground. Plants can't take it up. So we get a lot more flooding when our rain or precipitation is delivered that way. So that's another big impact. And this is my last slide before I'm going to hand it off to my partners to talk in depth about our project. But I just want to mention that this is the most nearest and dearest thing to my heart as an environmental scientist, is the power of working collaboratively with community. This work cannot be done successfully if it's not done with people coming from all different backgrounds, with all different experiences, all different expertise, and this includes all of you. You have so much knowledge about your neighborhoods and what you've experienced over time and right now where you live, that these projects can't be successful without everybody coming together. And so this project has, NKU faculty and students. We have Groundwork and Green Umbrella, these big organizations, but this project, you'll learn, was done with a lot of community neighborhood organizations and all the residents in those neighborhoods. And tonight, a little bit later on, we're going to invite you to participate and share your knowledge and data in this project as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tiffany with Groundwork Ohio River Valley, and she's going to talk in more detail about how we did this project with the Climate Safe Neighborhood. Tiffany, we can't hear you yet. Oh, now we can.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Tiffany Harvey. I am the GIS analyst for Groundwork Ohio River Valley, and I am very heavily involved with our climate safe neighborhoods program. My role is designing the mapping activities, which you guys will be involved with taking that data and then displaying it in visuals. I also do a lot of work with the CSN dashboard, which we will talk about. But before I get into all of that, I wanted to give you a background about where the Climate Safe Neighborhoods program started. So around 2021, we piloted the very first Climate Safe Neighborhoods program in Lower Price Hill. And Lower Price Hill is where the Groundwork ORV office is. So we already have a lot of really strong community connections there. And it seems like a natural fit to start there. In addition, Lower Price Hill is just a very unique, really special neighborhood with a lot of history. So we started there and created co-created and facilitated the creation of a climate action plan in the form of a map, which showed the locations where residents wanted to see climate adaptations. So that this was trees and green roofs and community gardens, rain gardens, a lot of different climate change solutions. And we also collected data related to the impacts that they were seeing. And both of those maps that were created, the impacts and the adaptation maps, were used to inform project implementation. So since Lower Price Hill, we have expanded our climate action planning within 11 neighborhoods. Some of those were combined programs that we did. So basically, we have a program called the Climate Advisory Group, which is composed of residents who get paid to attend meetings for about 6 weeks, where they learn about climate change and the environmental conditions within the neighborhood, and then they work to create a plan to address climate change in their specific neighborhood. So we have, again, like I said, we've done this program in 11 neighborhoods so far. 58 residents have been engaged in the program. And we have also hired 2 part-time community organizers, one from Hill and one from Lower Price Hill. We also were very involved with the Greater Cincinnati plan. We held the equitable engagement portion of the Greater Cincinnati plan. So basically what that meant was we hosted 4 separate one-night climate action planning sessions, kind of miniature versions of our longer programming that we do with the Climate Advisory Group. And from that, there were 6 additional climate action plans, or maps, that were created, and those are included in the Greater Cincinnati plan today, which was a huge achievement for our program. So the climate action plans, like I was saying, are not meant to just collect us. They're meant to be like real world plans for communities to use to prepare for climate change. So if you look at the slide that has the climate action plan for Lower Price Hill, you can see that there are arrows pointing to projects that we implement. So that map shows things that residents requested, and then you can see that we actually implemented those projects along with residents and a lot of community partners to make this happen. And in all, we have planted around 200 trees in Bond Hill and in Lower Price Hill. And next month, we are going to be working with a bunch of community partners to plant 140 trees in Abigail. And we continue to have a lot of tree planting events because that tends to be something that's really cost effective, and there's a really high cost benefit to planting trees. Yeah. And also we installed a tree roof on Robles School, which was a major project and a huge achievement. It's been a wonderful thing for the community. The school umbrella Groundwork ORV to bring this programming that we're talking about tonight into fruition. So what happened was because of the like one night climate action planning events that we did for the Greater Cincinnati plan, and we adapted those to bring that into Northern Kentucky. We held 3 one-night climate action planning workshops, which involved the mapping activities that we'll be talking about later, and also generally involved hearing from residents about what their vision is for climate action planning. We held those one-night workshops within the vulnerable neighborhoods of Kentucky, Newport, and Dayton. And also that grant funded 3 Northern Kentucky University GIS interns, and 2 of them are here with us today, and they'll be speaking after me. So with that, they were taught ArcGIS Online initially, and then they worked with me to expand the climate safe neighborhoods dashboard into Northern Kentucky, because before it was only in Cincinnati, so we needed to expand it further so that it accommodated our programming, expanding into Northern Kentucky. So after they did that, they also created a climate vulnerability model, which used GIS software to pinpoint neighborhoods that were specifically more vulnerable to climate change. That became like a portion of our decision-making process for selecting neighborhoods. It's not the only way that we select neighborhoods. We also take into account is there like a desire to have this programming in this neighborhood? Do officials and residents recommend this neighborhood? There's a lot of like community knowledge that we take into account. Probably more so than just the data that we use. Next slide, please. So the model created by interns, essentially it used GIS to take a bunch of data about the environmental, historical, and demographic characteristics of a neighborhood, and it combined all of those, added them together, and then averaged all of that together to create the climate change and vulnerability layer. So you can see like the results of that in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. The darker areas, the darker red areas are the more climate vulnerable areas. Yeah. And you can actually look at this map on the Greater Cincinnati Climate Neighborhoods dashboard. You can look at it in greater detail, and you can also like read more about how we created the model. Next slide, please. And like I mentioned before, a big part of the work that the GIS interns completed was expanding the dashboard into Northern Kentucky. And this was done during the process where we were trying to determine which neighborhoods the programming should like take place in. So it was really useful to explore like certain issues related to climate change in more detail, like heat, which is the slide that you're seeing here, or the map you're seeing here, excuse me, is like a huge issue, obviously, especially in urban areas. So that was something that we like looked at individually. But in addition to using it to determine neighborhood vulnerability, it's a wonderful tool for allowing residents to educate themselves on their environment, the hazards that they potentially face, the historical racism that took place in their neighborhood to make it look the way that it does now. And the idea is that with arming people with this information makes them more equipped to convince policymakers to maybe make some changes, and also helps motivate your fellow residents to try to do something about it to improve conditions. So,
Thank you, Tiffany. All right, Connor's going to come up and tell you a little bit more about how they made the dashboard.
Okay. All right. So as Tiffany mentioned earlier, Groundwork got a grant from the EPA Region 4, and with that grant, they hired us interns. It was me, Zoe, and then one other, Jalen. So to start expanding into NKY, we had to do 4 basic steps, really. Data gathering, data processing, collecting the metadata, and then visualizing the data. So the first thing we did was to start gathering the data. We gathered the data from multiple different data sources. So a few of those sources would be like CAGIS, which is the Cincinnati Area GIS company. And they provide things like the Cincinnati boundaries, or more like things specific for this area. There's also LinkGIS, which I didn't have up there. They are part of the planning and development services of Kentucky, or Kenton County, and they provided us with the neighborhood boundaries for Covington and Newport and that. Then there's also the EPA EJ screen, which is the environmental justice screening tool. They provided a lot of data. They actually update it yearly. It's a lot of things like PM 2.5 or ozone levels, or traffic proximity. And then we also had data from CDC Places. That's also referred to as 500 cities. They have data for all across America, 500 cities. That we use for demographic data, so cancer rates, asthma rates, things like that. And then these other ones, I won't list all of them, but we got 1 or 2 things from the rest of these sources. One example would be the low income, low access, that gave us food desert data. And then once we had all the data downloaded, we moved on to processing. So we had to download the data and then make sure it was organized on our hard drive, and then also on ArcGIS Online. And then we did most of our work in ArcGIS Pro. So while processing, we had to first connect the data to the map itself. So most of the data came in a giant spreadsheet, essentially. So we had to connect that to the census tracts so that it could be visualized instead of just being a bunch of words. And then we also had to clip the census tracts to just the Cincinnati area. That just means basically a cutout. And that was a cutout of the 15 surrounding counties in Cincinnati. And then we also had to project it to the Greater Cincinnati coordinate system, which we created for this project because it goes across 3 states. Maps having the correct coordinate system is really important because it allows for it to have the correct scale and size and nothing to be distorted. So by creating one specifically for this project, we made sure that it was showing everything how it is, in the most correct way. And so after we had everything all processed, we moved on to metadata. The metadata is essentially, describes or gives information about other data. So some of the metadata we had for this project would be the date it was created, where it came from, the date it was created, and also the coordinate system and datum, which are just map things. Next slide. Oh, that's me. And then finally there's visualization. So here I have a close-up of the vulnerability map for northern Kentucky. We use this, as Tiffany was saying, not just this, but also community data to pick which neighborhoods we were going to go into and do the CSN mini-series. This is on the CSM dashboard, and you can also click through and see all the other different variables and things that actually went in to create the final vulnerability map. Thank you.
Hi everyone, as Dr. H said, my name is Zoe and I was one of the GIS interns that worked under Tiffany to work on this project. So I want to talk a little bit more about the process that went into the 3 different workshops that we did in Dayton, Newport, and Covington, as well as the actual execution of the workshops. So one of the really great things that we did with these workshops was have an NKU science communication learning opportunity. There were several students that got the opportunity to work closely with the community organizations in terms of gathering materials for these workshops, as well as learning about how to not use jargon, how to research your audience, very helpful science communication tools such as that. So this included things like researching your audience, creating narratives. We actually got to walk around, we divvied up the neighborhoods, got to walk around the ones, take pictures, make observations about the neighborhood. And we also got to meet with some of the community partners in terms of understanding the culture of the neighborhoods, which ones we were specifically going to be working in, because the cities are pretty big. And then we actually got to make flyers and social media posts that were given to the community partners as a way of getting residents to come to these events. And we also had 2 students mentioned here that were able to give us Spanish translations, because that was something that we determined was needed for the workshops. And then, as I mentioned, we worked with some really great community partners with this project, which wouldn't have been possible without them. For example, the Center for Great Neighborhoods, Keep Covington Beautiful, City of Covington, Urban Forestry, Free Newport, Westside Citizen Coalition, City of Dayton, especially the Dayton Park Board. I can see some familiar faces of people that we worked with here today, which is awesome. And these people were really great in terms of helping us provide venues, researching our audience, knowing how to get the information about these workshops out there, and this project really wouldn't have been possible without them, so we had to give them a shout out. So something that was really important for these workshops was gathering the neighborhood data and making sure that we were able to explain to the residents in a simple and concise way why it was so important that we were coming to their neighborhoods for this project. So these were examples of some of the data that were presented at the workshops. For example, this is the Northern Kentucky redlining map. Redlining was a practice that happened in the 1930s as a way of determining what areas were safe and what areas were risky in terms of giving out mortgages and home loans. However, in a lot of areas in the United States, this was often a very racist practice, and areas that were labeled as dangerous or hazardous often had to do with people of color living there rather than them actually being due to environmental hazards. So then we also wanted to look at some of the environmental data that was specifically affecting these regions. For example, here we have the estimated runoff retention, which basically is explaining how much water is being run off on the streets and on impervious surfaces instead of being soaked into the ground. So as you can see, for example, in these neighborhoods in Covington, there's very low runoff retention. So there's low vegetation, it's not getting soaked into the ground, and that makes it really easy for flooding to occur. We also had some environmental data that we talked about at these workshops. For example, tree canopy, which is super important in terms of reducing air pollution, in terms of reducing flooding. As you can see, these 3 neighborhoods that we did the workshop in are very low in tree canopy in comparison to the surrounding area. And then also air pollution was a really big one for Dayton, Newport, and Covington. An example of an air pollutant is ozone, which causes lung irritation, poses issues to children and the elderly, people with heart disease. This is particularly important for these 3 neighborhoods because a lot of the air pollutants that we looked at are definitely increased because of the major interstates that we have in this area. So we just wanted to make sure that residents had a good understanding of the scientific data and looking at the things that were going on in their neighborhoods. So after we presented the data, we had the opportunity for the residents to do a mapping activity, which, as Dr. H said, you guys are going to get to participate in today. So here's a great photo of the residents getting involved in showing the climate impacts and adaptations that are affecting their neighborhood, places where they live or work. And then we take this data, for example, I've noticed here that this area is really hot or it's really difficult to breathe. There's a lot of noise pollution. We can actually take the specific streets that they've noticed that on. We digitize it in GIS and then clean it up in Illustrator to put together these great digital maps. And then we also take the same thing with the adaptations or solutions that they want to do. For example, we want to have more trees. We want to have a green parking lot. And we give these to the community in order for them to use, in order to advocate for themselves, if they want to try to get grant funding, if they want help with, you know, saying, hey, City Hall, we want these things done. It's a really great tool for them to use. And then we also take all of this data and we visualize it on the dashboard. For example, you can see this is Covington, where they've been adding all of the adaptations. And this is actually something that Groundwork is constantly updating. We have digital versions of the mapping activities that people can use where you can, you know, manually put it in. We didn't include it here because there's a lot of them for the neighborhoods, but at the end we're going to talk about where you can find all of the resources. And if you know, think about something, oh my gosh, I've noticed this, you want to put it in, we're always checking those surveys and then we update that on the dashboard as well. So now we're actually going to take a little break and you guys are going to get to walk around and participate in the same mapping activity that we did for the 3 workshops. So normally we have instructions on a sheet of paper. Unfortunately, I forgot those today. So by each map, we have note cards that have color-coded legends. For example, for any negative climate impacts you've noticed, we have the dots. And then for any solutions or adaptations you want to see, we have smiley faces and stars. So feel free to walk around if you live in any of these neighborhoods, or even if you just have any questions so far, we're all going to be walking around to help. Can you see that in the back? And then we have Dayton and 2 Rivers 1, 2 Rivers 2 on the side.
What you can do as an individual moving forward, thinking about whatever neighborhood you're in and how you can contribute to these ideas and make our region more climate resilient. And so Tiffany's going to share a few of these ideas and then we will wrap up and take any questions that you might have.
Thank you. If you live in Dayton, Covington, or Newport, there are many upcoming events related to climate action preparing that you can attend. The first one that I listed on the slide is from Dayton. They have a small tree planting coming up in a few months. You can get more information on that from the park board. Covington has a volunteer tree planting happening on November 2nd, and I have a link there for you to get more information about that. Newport has several tree plantings happening at various locations throughout the fall, and to learn more about those, you can go visit the Newport website, and you can join the list. Another way to stay involved and stay aware of what's going on related to climate action preparing in our region is to join the Thrive Together platform. This is an online platform that has been created by Green Umbrella to help with the creation of the Greater Cincinnati Regional Sustainability Playbook. And basically what you can do your suggestions and comments related to what you think should be involved in the region's sustainability plan. And along with that, you can also stay updated on what is happening with the Climate Safe Neighborhoods program. So within this, you can see like what work we've already done and the work that we will be doing. So it's a great way to stay informed about what's happening in the region.
Okay, so I want to invite all of you to make sure you go to that Groundwork Ohio River Valley website. That's where that climate dashboard is. It's a really fun tool and a map. You can click on all different layers. It's really user-friendly, and you can click on just one of those parameters. They taught you about all those different layers of data. You can see them individually, or you can see them all together as that climate vulnerability impact index. So you can go and you can zoom in on the map, you can zoom out, see how your neighborhood compares to others. So even if you're in a neighborhood that we didn't talk about today, the data covers the whole region. So you can go ahead and investigate that. And we just invite you to be a part, be a voice in what's happening in your area, and we'd love to work with you and work with more people and hear the expertise and input you have. If you have anything to share or have questions, you can reach out to me at Northern Kentucky University. Just look for the super long German last name. I'm in biology, or you can reach out to Tiffany Harvey at Groundwork Ohio River Valley. And with that, we would be happy to take any questions. I'm so appreciative of all of your time and all of you joining us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll come running with the mic. But one of the questions I had, Dr. Hopfensperger and all, is about the green roof project we were talking about. My buddy Ken here has a theme about schools and thinking about how to do that in Newport. So I wonder if you talk a little bit about that process. I appreciate it was not quite the theme, but it was a cool thing that we want to talk about.
Yeah, I'll just bring it up, and then Tiffany might be able to give more detail of that specific project. But in general, we do have several green roofs on buildings in northern Kentucky, and it really will ultimately come down to the building and its structure and if it can sustain a green roof. As far as how to make it happen or the funding, Tiffany, can you talk a little bit about how that project happened?
So unfortunately, I wasn't like super involved with that project specifically. So I don't know the details. But what I can say is that we did receive, I believe it was called a PRC grant, and that's like all I know about where the funding came from, unfortunately. But it did involve a lot of work from our Green Board, which is our young adult workforce. They worked for several months laying down the plastic basically and the foundations for the green roof, and then they installed all the plants. And I believe we used like a bunch of sedges because they absorb a lot of water for square foot that you're in. Yeah, so I'm sorry that I don't have more information because I wasn't really involved with that. But you can definitely learn more. Like I believe we have some information about it on our website.
Thank you. And feel free to reach out. I can send you some contacts with some of these organizations as well. If you have more questions about implementing a green roof, we can get you in touch with some of those organizations that worked on that.
Hey, so I was part of the Dayton, Kentucky team, and I'll say that we felt super supported by you all. As residents who were working with scientists, scholarly folks, we felt really, really good about it. And as a communications person, really interested in how we get the word out to our community members, our our neighbors and friends. Was there anything that you felt was really effective in getting the word out about what people can do to get involved, or how they can, get on board with the online aspects of it, where they can see the data? Did you have any struggles with that, with like the RSVPs or anything like that?
I would say we didn't really have any trouble, like technologically wise, with RSVPing, and at all of the workshops we typically planned for having just like walk-ins that didn't RSVP. The attendance definitely did like fluctuate a lot depending on the neighborhood, but that's just to be expected when you have multiple. I think the most effective thing in terms of getting the reach was working with the outlets that the community partners like recommended, because as much as we can like post on Instagram and LinkedIn on Groundwork, the people that might be most in need of attending these workshops might not necessarily be looking at that kind of a thing. So I definitely feel like maybe Tiffany, you could talk a little bit more about how you guys are able to find the residents and get the word out to them.
So the particular neighborhood that comes to mind immediately to me is the West End. So whenever we were doing the engagement for the Greater Cincinnati plan, West End, when we had our workshop there, was by far the largest turnout we've ever had. And it was not hard to see why. The reason that we had such a huge turnout is because we worked with Seven Hills, and they're a community-based organization that provides a lot of services to the neighborhood. They're very trusted. They're like a huge foundational community center for people in the West End. So that is like the biggest way to recruit, I guess, people to come. If you already have that established community center, which I think every community should have, a place where everybody feels comfortable going, and a place where people gather often and form relationships with each other. If you can figure out where that place is for a neighborhood and let them know about the programming and get them on board with it, that is like huge. And if that sort of like organization doesn't exist in a neighborhood, sometimes as figuring out like who is the person or handful of people who like really care about improving the neighborhood, like who is really involved in community work, make a like relationship with them, and then they spread the word throughout their circles, and that can be really successful. Social media is usually not where we get a lot of our participation. It's very much word of mouth, and the stronger a community is connected, the better success you have with this type of work, for sure.
Thanks.
And Ken Rector and City Commission, City of Newport, we all recognize the importance of controlling rain and controlling the runoff. And I think we all would agree that a permeable surface is probably the way we need to go. But we all struggle with having justification, having a financial justification. So I guess what I'd like to challenge folks is to develop that spreadsheet that shows us, your permeable surface will be this much, impermeable surface is this much. We've got 7 parking lots up and down Monmouth Street that are all asphalt. Every single one of them needs to be some sort of brick or something like that. Our streets, our brick streets, are really the ones we need to restore and bring back. We need to effectively do that, but the cost, nobody does the comparisons for us, and no paving contractor gives us that data, so that's not really a question, it's more of a challenge to find those solutions for us.
Yeah, I think that's a great topic to bring up, and it's really interesting to think about those those permeable, there's all different permeable concrete or asphalt in our region. I have not done my own data collection or research on this, but Sanitation District 1 has done some work a while back where it's not always the best option in our region because of the winters we have. So they have found it doesn't hold up always in high traffic areas. We have precipitation in the winter, and then it gets in those pores in the concrete, and then it freezes. So it expands and kind of cracks it up, and then it thaws, and then it freezes, and then it thaws. And so I think a great solution is to incorporate with the surfaces things like bioswales or vegetated outlets for the runoff, so that the runoff can be captured before it goes into our storm drains, into our streams. And so there are, multitude of solutions that could be combined together. And I hear you're saying cost analysis on those options and putting them all together. So for anyone interested in thinking about implementing some of those strategies, I know that SD1 does have information on that. They have their, I forgot what they call it, but it's like a park where you can go to their main office building and see some of these and see how they've weathered over time. And they have a person there who's very up to speed on that and where those solutions have been implemented in our region. So there are people thinking about that, and I found that really interesting with our winters of how different strategies are better than others.
Hey, Josh Tunney. I live in West Newport. Maybe more of a comment than a question. I was part of the workshop that was done in West Newport, and we're talking about advocacy of the neighborhoods. I just want to say that the work y'all are doing is really, really important, and it is giving our neighborhoods power to advocate. So from that climate workshop, from I think it was back in March, maybe April, time sure does fly. That really spurred a lot of conversation in our neighborhood. And since then, we Newport and the city of Newport worked together to apply for funding through the Kentucky Division of Forestry. And we applied for that with the conversations and data that came from that climate workshop. We used the data from the air quality study that's going on in Newport right now with NKU and Groundwork. And we got $250,000 from that grant. I just think it's really important to say that the work you all are doing is working. The advocacy that's building in these neighborhoods is coming from that. And just from a resident of West Newport, just thanks to you all, the students, the Groundwork, to NKU, because it's working. So we appreciate it.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Man, lady, you will hold that for me. Just point it at me there. the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the children at play, the corn tops ripe, and the meadows are in bloom, and the birds make music all the day. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. Oh, the children roll on the little cabin floor, all merry, all happy and bright. By and by hard times comes a knocking at the door, then my old Kentucky home says good night. Weep no more, my ladies, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for my old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home, far away. For my old Kentucky home, far away. God bless America, and God bless Kentucky. And God bless all the young people of Kentucky who are working for good projects to help others out, to give a lift to their fellow human beings. Red, yellow, brown, black, or white, we're all precious in Jesus' sight. It's the Holy Spirit's job to convict. It's God's job to judge. It's my job to love. God bless you, and I love you all.